What about the Sabbath? Our second reading this morning comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2, perhaps a familiar story to you. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, the disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what's not lawful to do on the Sabbath?" And Jesus said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? He entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and he gave some to his companions." Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Hey, Hunter, check it out. I got a river, I got a canoe, and I've got an open seat. Interested?
Maybe. Do you have much experience in a canoe?
Well, not much recently, but I do have a lot of faith.
Okay, I'll have some faith too. Let's just keep it right side up.
Well, this is working out fine. A few rapids, beautiful scenery, and a sunny day.
Yeah, this is great. I always enjoy canoeing. It's relaxing. Sometimes I wonder why I don't do it more often.
So, why don't you do it more often?
Time. I just feel like I don't have enough time.
Ha! Time? I thought it might be because you don't have a snappy pastor paddling partner.
Well, yeah, maybe. But what I was thinking is that it's just business. Too much to do.
What do you mean, too much to do?
I know it might sound crazy, but when I look around, I see kids, teenagers, adults, all so busy, 24/7, 365. It's like this treadmill that just keeps running and running and running. And it gets exhausting.
Yeah, I get that. I got work, and I got chores at home, and I got stuff to fix, and I got committees and boards and meetings. You know, it's hard to find time to work out and to see my kids and grandsons. I got to get them on my schedule.
Well, when I think about my life and talk to my friends, we're busy with different stuff. There's school, homework, jobs, sports, bands, clubs, and chores, family. Sometimes I'm not even sure why I'm doing what I'm doing. It just feels like get it done, get it done, get it done.
I didn't realize that. Is that the situation with all teenagers?
I don't know. I don't speak for everyone, of course. I do see some people just check out. Maybe it's problems at home or depression or drugs. They just disconnect. But the only other option seems like life at 100 miles per hour. 0 or 100, those seem like the choices.
Well, I'm sorry to say it doesn't get much better for adults. So much of time, it's be the best, it's do the best. It's go to this, be part of that, get more, earn more, give more. Seems like there's never enough. You know, it's even hard to unplug when we're canoeing. It's like there's this little voice in my head that says, be first, be the best, be the fastest. And then it's just hard to relax and enjoy it.
Well, here's a stretch of calm water. Let's just stop paddling and float on the river. Enjoy it and rest.
Okay. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
So, what's the answer?
You know, I'm not sure, but there is this idea in the Bible called the Sabbath.
Sounds old. It sounds sort of religious and churchy.
Yep, it is old, and it is religious, and it is churchy. Sometimes people think Sabbath means a bunch of rules and don't do that. But you know, what it really means is cease, stop, rest. It means rest from all those things that take energy out of you and do the things that give you life and energy and joy and happiness. Connect with life and connect with people and connect with God.
Sabbath, if it means that, I think I could get into it.
Yeah, it's really God's good gift for us for a good life. Sabbath, it can be canoeing or hiking or fishing. It can mean sitting around a campfire with friends. It can mean laughing. It can mean at night looking up at the stars and just wondering. Reading a book. Sabbath could be watching something you enjoy on Netflix or listening to music. It's believing that I don't have to do and earn and achieve anything, that I'm loved by God just as I am, and just as I am is enough. And that right now God invites me to rest.
That sounds great, but also sounds hard. It seems most people are either living 0 or 100 miles per hour.
I think you're right. It can be hard. So much of life around us is 24/7, 365. So I think what we need is a community. We need a group around us that's different. We need a community that encourages and practices Sabbath. I don't know, maybe your Boy Scout troop could do that, or maybe a church, or maybe your family. Communities that encourage Sabbath.
Yeah, maybe so, but I think this Sabbath on the river has come to an end. We need to paddle over to our pullout.
You're right. There's our pullout over there. It's been a little Sabbath on the river. And guess what? You didn't even get wet. So, what about the Sabbath? What about the Sabbath? Were you kind of thinking a little bit about that during the dialogue? It is old, and it is religious, and it is churchy. And in fact, of course, it goes back to the lives of ancient Jewish people, the fourth commandment in the Ten Commandments. In general, the Ten Commandments are a gift from God on how to live a good life, a gift from God of how life goes well. The commandments are an invitation to trust God and God's way in the world so that our lives go better. And you know what? With the Ten Commandments, our life together goes better also when we follow them. Of course, isn't life better for everyone when we don't lie, when we don't cheat, when we don't steal, when we don't murder, when we don't worship idols? You see, our life together is better too. It's God's gift. So, what about the Sabbath? What about the Sabbath? Sabbath means to stop. It means to cease. It means to rest. Long ago, in a day and culture when most people lived on small farms, or they worked in small shops, or they worked all day of the chores of home and family, the Sabbath meant 6 days of work and 1 day of rest during the week. Of course, there was always more to do. There was more to do then, there's more to do now, always more to do. But the commandment of Sabbath invited people to trust God that 6 days of work was enough. It invited people to be different than the 24/7, 365 lifestyles that they saw all around them. It invited people to something more than work and worry, work and worry. The Sabbath invited people to a rest for self, a rest with family and friends, and a rest with God. And if you know what a 7-day work week is like, or 7 days dawn to dusk caring for family, or a 7-day week caring for aging parents, you know about the need for Sabbath. And notice in our text that was read that the Sabbath is part of the deep fabric of creation. It's the rhythm of the created order, work and rest, work and rest. It's not just some thin religious rule. Rather, it picks up on the natural rhythms of life, how life works best, how we are made to be. And that's why Sabbath extends to who? Did you pick that up? It extends to children. It extends to servants. It extends to livestock. It extends to people from different cultures who believe in different religions. Sabbath is not about a particular religion. Rather, it's about the deeper things of creation and created life for everything and everyone that draws a breath. And beyond that, the rhythm of work and rest, it's the way of God. Work and rest, work and rest. It's like all of creation breathing deeply with God. But things can go sideways with the Sabbath. That's the point of the story from Mark 2 that I read. The good gift of the Sabbath becomes this long list of rules. Instead of a good gift that gives life, it becomes this list of rules that feeds a self-righteousness. Look at me and look at them. Sabbath can become something that takes life instead of gives life. It's a simple thing in the story that I read. It seems that Jesus and his disciples were walking through a field, and some of them just reached down and picked up a few heads of grain. That's all that happened. It's no big deal. Maybe they were a little hungry. And with all that's going on in life, why would anybody be watching and why would anyone care? But there were people watching. And it seems there were people who did care. They like rules. They liked religious rules about who's in and who's out. So with their rules, picking a few heads of grain is the same thing as harvesting your field on the Sabbath, and that's work, and you can't do work on the Sabbath. So picking a few heads of grain is out of line. They thought God and faith were all about rules. Some people are still like that, I think. But then Jesus says, hey, you've got it upside down. You got it upside down. Rather than people being like Play-Doh pressed into a Sabbath mold, Jesus says the Sabbath is more like a glass of ice water and a comfortable chair when you're hot and tired. God and faith are about grace, gracious space to find healing and rest. I look around and I think a lot of people might be interested in something like that. Years ago, in the early 1990s, when I was a young pastor, I remember a beautiful summer afternoon on a Sunday. The sun was shining and my car needed washed. The house we lived in was next to the church with this big lawn between our house and the church. So I pulled my car up onto the lawn, turned the radio on, and washed my car. It was a beautiful day. The next day I got this phone call. A church member was concerned that I was washing my car on Sunday, washing my car on the Sabbath, and maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I mean, after all, what might some people think? So we talked. We talked about the Sabbath, and we talked about work and rest, and we talked about how I enjoyed the day and being outside and washing my car, and how during the week I was very busy with church things and 3 young children. The Sabbath isn't so much about a list of don't do that's, I said. Rather, it's about things that give life. It's a break from the busyness of every day to settle into rest and joy. And washing my car gave me some joy. I believe it's okay. I'd like to believe we learn to celebrate Sabbath a little more in the church after that. So, what about Sabbath? What about Sabbath? For some people, it may indeed mean rest, stop, cease. It may mean stepping away from a 24/7, 365 busy lifestyle for time for yourself, for time with your family, for time with friends, for time with God. It may mean taking a break from all the political noise. Hey, wouldn't that be a good Sabbath? It may mean setting your cell phone aside for an afternoon once a week. It may mean one day a week letting all the social media go on without you. It may mean discovering that more is not always better and learning to say no. Our mom-to-mom mission gives the gift of Sabbath to some single moms as they stop their everyday lives for a couple hours because there's care for their kids and there's fellowship with other moms and there's a meal that they don't have to prepare. It's a Sabbath. For some people, Sabbath means stopping, stepping away from those things that take energy and life. Just stepping away. And as I thought about it this week, I thought for other folks, maybe Sabbath means do. Do. Not adding more stuff to a full schedule, not doing like all the other things that you may be doing, but doing something that gives life. It may mean, as we said, canoeing, or hiking, or campouts with your friends and scouts. It may mean washing your car on a beautiful summer Sunday. It may mean listening for God in Sunday worship, or listening for God on a walk around Buell Park, or listening for God on a mission project to help others. Sabbath may mean a date night with your spouse, or a movie night with your kids, or planting a small garden because it brings this peace to your soul. My youngest brother is on the road with sales during the week, gone usually Monday through Thursday, sometimes till Friday. And then when he gets home, he's got all his chores to catch up on around his house with his busy family. A few months ago, I was talking to him on the phone, and he said he had a new hobby. Do you know what his new hobby is? Growing lavender. He said he's growing lavender. The quiet, the work with seed and soil, the smell. He said it's relaxing. It's a Sabbath, isn't it? For some people, Sabbath means a time and energy for things and relationships that give us life. And for all of us, Sabbath is paying attention to what matters most. A few years ago, Dr. Gabriel Palmer Fernandez, a professor over at YSU, came over and was teaching a Sunday school class, and I remember a story that he shared. Maybe if you were here, you remember it too. Dr. Palmer Fernandez said this. He said, one afternoon I was waiting for an elevator in a building on campus, and two co-eds walked up and they joined me, waiting, two young women who were very attentive to whatever was happening on their cell phones. So we stood there waiting, me and these two girls who were friends. No one said anything, but the girls, they were just really connected to their phones. And when the elevator arrived, I got on, and the girls glanced up, and they joined me. Both then went immediately back to their phones. Finally, I asked, are you on your phones a lot? The girls gave me a look. One of the girls then said, yeah, I suppose so. They're very important. So I asked, why? Why are they so important? The other girl then said, with an expression of seriousness, because we're afraid we might miss something. I then looked at them and said, do you know what? I'm afraid you might be missing everything. The door then opened. I got out on my floor, and then as I got out of the elevator, I heard one of the girls say to the other, I think we missed our floor. It's not a story necessarily about cell phones and technology. Rather, it's about being so busy with anything that we miss what's most important. So busy with anything that we miss what's most important. On the plus side of 60, I pay attention to that more nowadays. I don't want to miss what's most important with my life, with my wife, with my family, with my friends, with God. Sabbath is a gift to help us recenter our lives on what matters most. It invites us to a beautiful rhythm of life. So the question is, what about Sabbath for you? What about Sabbath for you? Amen.